Hello and welcome. It is Erick Erickson here, the Erick Erickson Show across the state of Georgia. The phone number, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Well, we have the Horowitz Report. For over a year now, people on the right in particular have been treating everybody in politics these days wants a silver bullet. Let me start at that premise. Everyone in politics wants a silver bullet to take out the other side. Instead of debating the other side, coming up with public policy, trying to persuade voters across the board. I'm trying not to use the word holistically. It's such a pretentious word, but trying to persuade voters across the political aisle that they're right on issues, building a platform around which people can rally. Instead, both sides are trying to find silver bullets. During the Obama era, Republicans constantly tried to find that one silver bullet, often named John Roberts, who was going to take out Obamacare, or there was going to be a magical, mysterious birth certificate that would undermine Barack Obama's claims to the presidency, or there was going to be some scandal somewhere, never mind that the press was protecting him, and on it went. And then the Democrats did the exact same thing with Donald Trump. Mueller was going to be the silver bullet. Adam Schiff was going to be the silver bullet. Impeachment was going to be the silver bullet. Anonymous was going to be the silver bullet. There was going to be that one thing, just that one thing that was going to wipe out Donald Trump. Silver bullets are as mythological as werewolves. I mean, you can make a silver bullet, but it's not going to take out your bad guy. It's not going to take out your werewolf. And the whole thing has been silly. Well, the right has, in its own fever swamps over the last couple of years, I can't tell you the number of friends of mine who've said, oh, the Horowitz Report, the Horowitz Report, the Horowitz Report. I have had friends who have become detailed experts on what the Horowitz Report was going to contain before the Horowitz Report ever came out. Before the Inspector General ever released his report, I had friends who could tell you detailed stuff, and inconceivably, within 10 minutes of the Horowitz Report being released, it was over 400 pages long, and friends of mine had their detailed diagnostic of exactly what it said and how everything the Democrats had ever alleged was ever wrong. Well, there's a lot for both sides to cherry pick out of it. Overall, what we have is a report that should, in fact, be troubling to both sides of the aisle. There are a lot of conspiracy theories debunked by the DOJ report, and there are a lot of things that people should be troubled by about the FBI's behavior. I don't trust, though, a number of the reporters out there who are covering it any more than I trust partisans who are covering it. I mean, for example, I think some of the political reporters have been deeply, deeply troubling in how they have approached the situation with everything related to the president and national security. And I think that is a fair statement. I think that reporters and number of media outlets could do a much better job. And I bring up the Politico, though, because I do actually think that there has been some pretty good coverage at Politico on the Horowitz Report and what it said or did not say, how it covered things, and what it did. In fact, while there's a lot of debunking of the Horowitz Report by or a lot of debunking of right-wing mythology by the press and the Horowitz Report, there is, in fact, deeply troubling data within the Horowitz Report related to the behavior of the FBI. This is not a report that the Democrats should be rallying around as proof of how terrible the president is. They can say it debunks right-wing claims, because it does. There are a number of right-wing claims that are debunked in this. Several things the president has claimed, including that the Obama campaign tried to embed someone within his campaign, thoroughly debunked by Horowitz. A lot of stuff on the FICE application, Christopher Steele, debunked. But there's some serious trouble for the FBI. I mean, let me, before I get into even how the mainstream media is covering this, not exactly fans of the Trump administration, let me give you some of the detailed reporting from Josh Gerstein at the Politico, who I think actually does a far better effort at covering the broad scopes of this report than some of his colleagues at Politico, who have been so emotionally invested in getting the president. They're just giddy that some of the president's claims have been debunked, and they're not paying attention to some of the underlying seriousness of what the Inspector General found. So let me read you these couple of paragraphs here. A highly anticipated Justice Department review of the origins of the federal investigation into potential collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia found no direct evidence of political bias in launching the probe, but identified an embarrassing slew of inaccuracies and omissions by the FBI that marred requests for court-ordered surveillance of a former Trump campaign advisor. The report from the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, also revealed for the first time the FBI used a confidential source to approach an unidentified high-level Trump campaign official in September 2016 who was never the subject of the investigation. The approach revealed nothing of value to the probe. Horowitz's review did not find any indication the FBI planted anyone in the campaign, as President Trump claimed, but it does bolster that campaign officials were repeatedly the focus of outreach by confidential human sources seeking to establish whether the campaign was colluding with Russia. The report finds those tactics complied with existing FBI policy, but the review contains withering criticism of the preeminent law enforcement agency for basic, fundamental, and serious errors handling the surveillance application for Carter Page. We are deeply concerned that so many basic and fundamental errors were made by 3 separate, hand-picked investigative teams on one of the most sensitive FBI investigations. After the matter had been briefed to the highest levels within the FBI, even though the information sought through the use of FISA authority related so closely to an ongoing presidential campaign, and even though those involved with the investigation knew that their actions were likely to be subject to close scrutiny, we believe the circumstance reflects a failure not just but by those who prepared the FISA applications, but also by the managers and supervisors in the Crossfire Hurricane chain of command, including FBI senior officials who were briefed as the investigation progressed. The Attorney General is endorsing the Inspector General's critique of the FBI handling of the surveillance process, but he does say that Horowitz is missing data on the predicate to launch the investigation. There is now a separate investigation. If you'll recall, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, has appointed a highly respected U.S. Attorney from Connecticut, John Durham, to be a federal prosecutor to investigate other aspects of how the Russia probe began. Where did it begin? And John Durham is signaling, this is his statement. And again, Democrats and Republicans alike respect John Durham. And he says our investigation has included developing information from other persons and entities, both in the U.S. and out of the U.S., based on the evidence collected to date. And while our investigation is ongoing, last month we advised the Inspector General we do not agree with some of the report's conclusions as to predication and how the FBI case was opened. That is pretty significant coming from John Durham. Here's the problem, though, is Trump supporters are now moving their goalposts. They had planted their flag on a host of claims that have now been debunked by the Inspector General. And so now they picked up the goalposts and they're moving to say, hey, pay no attention to all those stuff. Look, John Durham is still doing an investigation. Now we got to wait for Durham. It was always wait for Horowitz, wait for Horowitz, wait for Horowitz. Even in the run-up to the report yesterday, a lot of conservatives saying, so today Horowitz is going to come out and undermine all the claims of the Democrats and everything they've made and show that this was a partisan affair. Well, in some cases he didn't. In some cases he showed FBI agents behaving very badly. But he showed that they did not use the Steele dossier to open the Russia probe. He showed Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were not decision makers. He showed Carter Page was the only Trump official under a FISA surveillance. The first Carter Page FISA did contain inaccuracies and omissions. Steele was dropped as an FBI source. He had a prior relationship with Ivanka Trump. And it turns out Paul Manafort was under investigation prior to scrutiny in the Russia probe. Those are the things they found. Horowitz faulted investigators for, this is from a different Politico story. Horowitz faulted investigators for various aspects of their use of the so-called Steele dossier, including relying too heavily on it for warrants for surveillance applications when concerns had been raised about its validity and its source of funding. But Horowitz refuted the claims propagated by Trump that the Russia investigation had its roots in the dossier. The FBI began its investigation at the end of July 2016 based on a tip it received days before about a Trump campaign advisor, George Papadopoulos, from a foreign ally. That would be the Australian ambassador, if you recall, and that's part of the Durham investigation now, apparently. While Steele's reporting for what became the dossier began prior to the opening of the Russia probe, Horowitz found that the team of investigators at the FBI did not become aware of Steele's reporting until weeks after the investigation began, and concluded the dossier played no role in the opening. Neither did Lisa Page nor Peter Strzok. It turns out that there was never a wiretap of Trump Tower or the Trump campaign. The FBI did not plant spies in the Trump campaign. And there was Joseph Mifsud was not an FBI informant. One of the theories put out by some people close to the Trump campaign was that there's a professor named Joseph Mifsud. He's a Russian proxy who informed Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos about the Kremlin dirt. The interaction set off a series of events that began the Russia probe. It turns out that the guy was not in league with the FBI. Those are some of the claims sorted. But the Democrats are seizing on all of those debunked claims, and they're ignoring a lot of the behavior of the FBI that we should be troubled about when it comes to civil rights and how they conduct investigations. Here's Jake Tapper from CNN.
But the report, of course, also outlines some very significant errors made by FBI officials.
That's right. There were 17 total instances in which there were substantial inaccuracies or omissions that were left out of these FISA applications. These are surveillance warrants that were targeting Carter Page, who, as we mentioned, was an advisor for the campaign. According to Horowitz, there were 17 such instances in which things were left out or was plainly inaccurate. And these were 4 different warrants, Jake, that got approval from a court. And in each case, the FBI simply failed to update the information for the judges that were reviewing these warrants.
Failed to update information. Here's James Comey.
Do you think Wray had that in mind today when he acknowledged the mistakes, talked about taking 30 steps to fix a FISA program, which also in the report appears to have some serious weaknesses?
I think so. I mean, the report found lots of mistakes. That's really significant, really unfortunate, but that's why you do IG reports. And so that's good that he's jumped on that.
And here is what Wray said, Christopher Wray, the FBI director.
What's the biggest takeaway and the most important takeaway from the report for you?
Well, I think there's a number of takeaways that are important. One, that we fully cooperated with this independent review. 2, that we fully accept its findings and recommendations. 3, that the Inspector General did not find political bias or improper motivations impacting the opening of the investigation or the decision to use certain investigative tools during the investigations.
Including FISA.
Including FISA. But that the Inspector General did find a number of instances where employees either failed to follow our policies, neglected to exercise appropriate diligence, or in some other way fell short of the standard of conduct and performance that we and that I as director expect of all of our employees. But again, we are, and I am, ordering over 40 corrective actions to address all of those things in a way that's robust and serious. And we're determined to learn the lessons from this report and make sure the FBI emerges from this even better and stronger.
They're going to need to. The FBI has undermined its own credibility on the right because of its handling of this. And now the Inspector General has come out, and you've got mainstream media sources pointing out they really did screw up a lot. Pete Williams is on NBC and MSNBC, one of the best reporters in the business when it comes to this stuff. He genuinely is a well-respected reporter on the right and the left. Listen to what Pete Williams says in his summation of the IG report.
What it says is the FBI basically repeatedly screwed up at every level failing to pay enough attention to potential problems with steel, failing to tell the Justice Department. And it says at one point that the FBI decided to seek this FISA warrant, even at the risk of being criticized for doing it later, because the report says FBI officials said they had to get to the bottom of a potentially serious threat to national security. But the Inspector General report says the FISA application was in many ways inaccurate, incomplete, or unsupported. It says, for example, that the FBI failed to look at some of the problems in Steele's past work, that was never sufficiently addressed.
A lot of what Republicans claimed would come out in the Horowitz report did not come out. Many of their theories were debunked by Horowitz, but their underlying presupposition turned out to be right. And I think that's significant. The underlying presupposition is that the Steele dossier, prepared by Democratic partisans to undermine President Trump, was used by the FBI, was discredited. The FBI agents did not update the court as to how it had been discredited, even if after they stopped relying on it and Christopher Steele. And there was polluting of Democratic thought processes, Democratic Party thought processes within the FBI. There were partisans there who were moving fast to undermine the president. Part of that was they really did believe the president was a Russian agent. Part of that was they were moving fast. Part of that was they were working through multiple different groups and multiple different channels, and they weren't talking to each other. But there's something else here, too, and something we need to be concerned about overall, and that is the behavior of everyone when it comes to pointing fingers at the FBI and the FBI pointing fingers to everyone else. Who do you believe and who do you trust now? Looks like the Horowitz report has a lot for everybody to digest.
Erick Erickson wades through the fake news.
Happening now, the Democrats are announcing the impeachment of the president. Let me reroute my audio here so we can hear the Speaker of the House making history.
I recall that the first order of business for members of Congress is the solemn act to take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. With great respect and gratitude that I thank the chairs of the committees, the 6 committees who have been working to help us honor our oath of office. I also want to thank the staff of those committees and the committee members for all of their work over this period of time to help us protect and defend. I want to thank the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Nadler, chair of the Intelligence Committee, Mr. Schiff, chair of the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman, all of these chairmen, Chairman Richie Neal of Massachusetts, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Okay. She's going to go through all the thinking and process. This happened a short time ago, it does appear, and there are going to be no questions for Adam Schiff, and they are going to go forward with 2 articles of impeachment. Let's see if I can pull up the Adam Schiff audio here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to my colleagues, good morning. The framers of the Constitution recognized that someday a president might come to office who would abuse that office, betray the public trust, and undermine national security to secure foreign help in his reelection, and who would seek to abrogate the power of Congress to hold him accountable. They recognized this danger, and they prescribed a remedy, and that remedy is impeachment. It is an extraordinary remedy, and one that I've been reluctant to recommend until the actions of President Trump gave Congress no alternative. We stand here today because the president's continuing abuse of his power has left us no choice. To do nothing would make ourselves complicit in the president's abuse of his high office, the public trust, and our national security. The president's misconduct is as simple and as terrible as this. President Trump solicited a foreign nation.
We'll get into more of this when we come back. But needless to say, the Democrats have decided to impeach the president. 2 articles of impeachment. Bribery is not one of them, contrary to the talking points and claims of the Democrats. And nothing about the concentration camps. I thought they were serious about that one. We'll get into this when we come back. I gotta say, it really is remarkable that after months of telling us the president was running concentration camps, the Democrats have not included that in their articles of impeachment. Peter Dow is he is in the Hillary Clinton cult. I mean, this guy is absurdly partisan in favor of Hillary Clinton more than anyone else. Let me read you this tweet. Torturing children, no impeachment. Inciting anti-media violence, no impeachment. Stoking Nazi terrorism, no impeachment. Entire Mueller report, no impeachment. Violating emoluments clause, no impeachment. Threatening political opponents, no impeachment. Shame on you, dim leaders. Someone clearly believed the talking points. Never believe the talking points, people on either side. Never believe the talking points. Think for yourself. All right. Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff have spoken. They're coming out with their articles of impeachment. Let's listen first to Jerry Nadler.
Judiciary Committee, Mr. Nadler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Over the last several months, the investigative committees of the House have been engaged in an impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump's efforts to solicit foreign interference in the 2020 elections, efforts that compromised our national security and threatened the integrity of our elections. Throughout this inquiry, he has attempted to conceal the evidence from Congress and from the American people. Our president holds the ultimate public trust. When he betrays that trust and puts himself before country, he endangers the Constitution, he endangers our democracy, and he endangers our national security. The framers of the Constitution prescribed a clear remedy for presidents who so violate their oath of office. That is the power of impeachment. Today, in service to our duty to the Constitution and to our country, the House Committee on the Judiciary is introducing 2 articles of impeachment charging the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, with committing high crimes and misdemeanors. The first article is for abuse of power. It is an impeachable offense for the President to exercise the powers of his public office to obtain an improper personal benefit while ignoring or injuring the national interest. That is exactly what President Trump did when he solicited and pressured Ukraine to interfere in our 2020 presidential election, thus damaging our national security, undermining the integrity of the next election, and violating his oath to the American people. These actions, moreover, are consistent with President Trump's previous invitation.
And how could it not be when the president's own words on July 25th, "I would like you to do us a favor, though," lays so bare his intentions, his willingness to sacrifice the national security for his own personal interests. And when the president got caught, he committed his second impeachable act, obstruction of Congress of the very ability to make sure that no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. The evidence is every bit as strong that President Trump has obstructed Congress fully, without precedent, and without basis in law. If allowed to stand, it would decimate Congress's ability to conduct oversight of this president or any other in the future, leaving this president and those who follow to be free to be as corrupt, malfeasant, or incompetent as they would like, with no prospect of discovery or accountability. Now, some would argue, why don't you just wait? Why don't you just wait until you get these witnesses the White House refuses to produce? Why don't you just wait until you get the documents the White House refuses to turn over? And people should understand what that argument really means. It has taken us 8 months to get a lower court ruling that Don McGahn has no absolute right to defy Congress. 8 months for one court decision. If it takes us another 8 months to get a second court or maybe a Supreme Court decision, people need to understand that is not the end of the process. It comes back to us, and we ask questions because he no longer has absolute immunity, and then he claims something else, that his answers are privileged and we have to go back to court for another 8 or 16 months. The argument, why don't you just wait, amounts to this. Why don't you just let him cheat in one more election? Why not let him cheat just one more time? Why not let him have foreign help just one more time?
You know, I need to stop this there and point out, we have the Mueller report. Didn't happen. That didn't happen. They're impeaching the president over mythology. That's what's going on here. They're impeaching the president over a mythology. The president of the United States has done what? He asked Ukraine to look into the CrowdStrike stuff from 2016 and to check out the Biden allegations that he believed had been dropped for political influence. The Ukrainians did none of that. The president got no help. He got no help from the Russians in 2016. The Russians just tried to undermine the election generally. And yet here is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee claiming that the president cheated in 2016. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. The Democrats are still mad about the 2016 election. They're not mad about the president's behavior. They're not mad about the Ukraine phone call. They're not mad about what the president said in office. They're mad that he won. Schiff has just given the game away. That's really profound that the Democrats are essentially, they really are. Listen, I would much prefer a President Pence to a President Trump. I'm not opposed to if they find something impeaching the president. But what Adam Schiff is saying here is he just wants to undermine the election from 2016. He calls it out. He believes the Russians stole for the president. And I'm sorry, that's stealing the election. That's taking the election away from the American people who did an election. There's no evidence that the Russians were ever able to steal the election. There's no evidence that their money on Facebook was able to actually persuade people to change their votes. There's no evidence they hacked election machines and stole votes. What there is a candidate on the Democratic side who sucked as a candidate, didn't go to 3 key swing states that she should have gone to, and she lost them, and President Trump won. Now, you can dislike the president. I don't particularly care for the guy on a lot of stuff. But for Adam Schiff to come out and say the president cheated in 2016, the Mueller report actually debunked that. The Mueller report said it's not true. The Mueller report said there was no indication of the Russians colluding with the Trump campaign. The Horowitz report came out yesterday and said the same thing, that the Trump team and the Russians were not collaborating together. And yet the Democrats now are rushing out of the gate to impeach the president of the United States. They have failed to make a bipartisan effort to do so. They haven't convinced any Republicans to come on board. And now they're saying this is about 2016. It's not about Ukraine. It's about 2016. It's about believing the president cheated. I don't think the president should have done what he did with Ukraine. I think it was wrong. But then I think tariffs are wrong. I think the president's behavior online is wrong. I think a lot of the president's angry tweets are wrong. But just because something is wrong does not mean it's impeachable. We've lost the ability to nuance and distinguish in the country. Wrong does not mean impeachable. It means I disagree with him. I think it was bad. I think he should have done something else. But wrong is not impeachable. And what the Democrats are saying here is essentially they don't like the president's behavior, and they don't like what the president has done in Ukraine, and they think that the president cheated and in 2016, and they want to stop him from cheating in 2020. They think he cheated.
For one court decision. If it takes us another 8 months to get a second court or maybe a Supreme Court decision, people need to understand that is not the end of the process. It comes back to us and we ask questions because he no longer has absolute immunity, and then he claims something else, that his answers are privileged and we have to go back to court for another 8 or 16 months. The argument, why don't you just wait, amounts to this. Why don't you just let him cheat in one more election? Why not let him cheat just one more time? Why not let him have foreign help just one more time?
All of that was debunked by the Mueller report. Do we need to read back through the Mueller report? Do we need to? Because it's there in the Mueller report that the campaign did not get foreign help from the Russians. It's there in the Mueller report that what the Democrats have claimed wasn't true. It's there in the Mueller report that the Russians wanted to systematically undermine our election and have each other in the United States at each other's throat. They've succeeded beyond their wildest dreams in that. But the president didn't cheat. Hillary Clinton sucked. There's a difference. And the Democrats don't seem to understand it. And that is deeply problematic for where we head as a country next.
Honest news and conservative views.
Never separated from the truth.
It's the Erick Erickson Show.
Great party, huh, guys?
Yeah, it is. So
great.
Much fun. I do say so myself. Hey, did you know that birthday parties actually help build confidence in kids?
Yeah, I did know that.
Did you know that giving kids less sugar before bedtime helps them sleep better?
Right, of course.
Yeah, I knew that. Did you know that strollers have the right of way on sidewalks?
Oh yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, that's true. Did you know that friendly kids statistically have more friends?
Everyone knows that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So obvious.
Hey, guys, did you know that most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
I didn't know that.
Think I knew that.
No, you didn't.
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right car seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to make sure your child is protected. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Psst. Yeah, it's me, your heart. Listen to me. We've got to talk. High blood pressure is serious, and yours? Whoa. What happened to us? We used to be so much more active. But lately, you've been ignoring me. I know you think I'm just gonna keep ticking away for...
Hello there. It is Erick Erickson here, the Erick Erickson Show across the state of Georgia. The phone number, if you want to be a part of the program, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I feel like, given what has happened in Washington today with the impeachment, we should use this CNN montage.
Good afternoon, and with that gavel coming down, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, and you're watching special coverage of this historic day.
This is a historic day here in the nation's capital.
It will be a busy and historic day ahead.
You're watching CNN special live coverage of what can only be described as an historic day.
This is turning out to be a historic day, a very important day. And another very, very important and historic day, a very historic and important important day, another historic day here in Washington, historic day here in the nation's capital. Chris, this is going to be another historic day here in Washington.
At the end of a long and certainly historic day.
A truly historic day. It was a historic day on Capitol Hill.
A historic day with millions watching.
A historic day.
Historic day on this historic day. We're just getting started on this important historic day.
All right, it is a historic day on Capitol Hill.
Historic day on Capitol Hill, impeachment of the President of the United States. They have a problem, though. Americans are not sold. Independents are not sold. Republicans are not sold. There's no bipartisanship. Here's Mercedes Schlapp, who worked at the White House on with Laura Ingraham last night before the articles came, but we knew the articles were coming. Here we go.
The Democrats really can't see how this is all helping Trump, but I can tell you all the messages I was getting from friends and associates across the country, people are giddy. They just think the Democrats are out of gas.
Oh, there's no question. And what I like when you see those media pieces, for example, and they start saying the dark hour, they've been talking about the White House in crisis since the president became president. It's the crisis. And really, it's the Democrat Party and the media that's in crisis. The Democrats were trying and praying that they could sell this narrative of impeachment, Laura. They have failed dramatically. The American people, especially in these targeted states, we've seen these polls, are basically saying, wait a second, let's get these policy issues resolved. Let's get USMCA passed, which impacts states like Pennsylvania, impacts states like Wisconsin and Michigan, as opposed to what we're seeing right now, which is that they're not buying it. Once these hearings came out publicly,
they're falling flat.
It fell flat.
VDH.
There you go. It all fell flat. The Democrats haven't been able to make a case on impeachment to the American people. So I can't emphasize this part enough. Republicans were able to get a bipartisan impeachment against Bill Clinton. Democrats haven't been able to do that with Donald Trump. Now, why? Democrats are convinced that nothing they say or do would persuade Republicans. But behind the scenes, they know that's not true. The public facade of this, so much of this is public facade. So here's the thing. If the Democrats lose in 2020 to Donald Trump, the media narrative is going to be impeachment hurt the Democrats. If Democrats win in 2020, the media narrative will be that actually impeachment was genius and it helped galvanize the American public against Donald Trump. They will write the narrative based on impeachment based on what happens in November of next year. And the Democrats will spin and the media will gladly accept the spin from the Democrats on this. But Republicans were able to make a bipartisan case against Bill Clinton. Democrats can't make a bipartisan case right now. And the big galvanizing issue here is that the Democrats have not offered the Republicans anything. They haven't been willing to accept any of the Republican witnesses. They haven't been able to accept any of the Republican claims. That they haven't been willing to go through the motions to try to even build a bipartisan case, because this is all about galvanizing the Democratic base. It's not actually about impeaching the president. They don't have the votes in the Senate to impeach the president. And so the Republicans are left to honestly conclude, that this has never really been about throwing the president out of office. This has been about mobilizing the Democratic base for next year. It looks like this is electioneering, not constitutional. It looks like this is about the election, not the impeachment. It looks like the Democrats are so convinced that they've got to do everything to get the president. See, they've been saying we got to impeach the president in order to win in 2020. It has nothing to do with actually throwing him out of office. It has to do with galvanizing the Democratic base, fundraising off the Democratic base, doing all of these things. It's not going to work. Publicly, the Democrats say there's nothing they could do to persuade Republicans to come along with them. Privately, they know that's not true. Privately, they know there are about 24 Republicans leaving Congress. Half of them don't like the president, the ones who are retiring. All they needed was for the Democrats to throw them a bone, and they would have come up with something. Will Hurd from South Texas doesn't like the president, but he needed more than what the Democrats were willing to offer, and they didn't want to go there. Adam Schiff saying they would have to fight this out in court. Yeah, they'd have to fight it out in court. They'd have to get those witnesses, but so? They didn't do their due diligence in this impeachment. And so now what's going to happen, very interestingly, is they will go to the Senate. And what they want is a trial in the Senate. They want a spectacle in the United States Senate. And what the Democrats are really hoping is that in the United States Senate, there will be enough evidence on display that they can undermine the president. And that is problematic. I think that the Democrats will be sending out fundraising this afternoon. In fact, I'm sure the Democrats will be sending out fundraising efforts this afternoon, but so will the president. The president has a rally planned tonight in Pennsylvania. Key location, is it not? Pennsylvania. He will go to Pennsylvania. He will meet privately this afternoon with the Russian foreign minister at the White House. He will then fly to Pennsylvania for a rally. You know the rally will be on Fox News. And by the way, there's interesting data out on Fox News that plays into this. Turns out that in 299 of the 400 some odd congressional districts out there, Fox News is the most watched news network. I want to spend a little time on this later, but it's deeply relevant to impeachment as everybody fixates. In nearly 70% of congressional districts, Fox News is the most watched news outlet. In 70% of congressional districts. People, this is from Joanna Piacenza at Morning Consult. People tend to seek out news that reinforces their own ideologies, and a news analysis of more than 1 million responses gathered over the past year suggests the country is much hungrier for red meat. Morning Consult data from 1,124,368 responses gathered November 1st, 2018 through October 31st, 2019 provides a unique look at weekly viewership of CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC among Democrats, Independents, and Republicans in every U.S. congressional district and reveals the awesome reach of one outlet in particular, Fox News. It is the most watched cable news outlet in 299 of the 436 districts by a margin of 2 percentage points. The conservative leading cable giant, which launched in 1996, has led cable in total day viewers for the last 40 months, according to Nielsen. Residents in 63 districts watch nonpartisan CNN the most by the same margin, and left-leaning MSNBC is the most watched cable news channel in only one congressional district. California's second, a Democratic district that encompasses the state's coast north of San Francisco. That's going to matter. It's going to matter in how impeachment is shaped. It's going to matter in why the Democrats have not been able to build bipartisan consensus. The Democrats, and this is the key here, this is the important key, the Democrats have convinced themselves that they can't get a fair hearing on Fox, despite the Fox News day part being very balanced and very fair. They haven't even tried to make a bipartisan case. They're going to fundraise off of it, and it's going to undermine them in the coming year. Really incredible to watch this play out.